Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak to your heart today. I believe you're not here by accident, you're here because something in your spirit knows it's time for a shift. You've been carrying things too long. The weight of the past, the sting of betrayal, the regret of missed chances that's been holding you back, slowing you down, keeping you from the life God created you to live. But I've got good news for you today. You don't have to carry it anymore. You can choose right now to let go, to release the burden, to trust that what's behind you is not greater than what's ahead of you. You see, too often we hold on to what's familiar, even if it's hurting us, because we're afraid of the unknown. But friend, God can't pour new blessings into hands that are full of yesterday's pain. If you want to live free, if you want to step into the fullness of your purpose, you've got to make the decision, I'm letting it go. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. So today I'm going to encourage you not just to survive your life, but to start living it. To stop waiting for closure, stop replaying the what ifs, and force yourself to let go so you can finally walk in the joy, peace, and power that's already inside you. Many people go through life without realizing how much they're carrying emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. They wake up each day feeling tired, overwhelmed, or stuck, not necessarily because of what's happening today, but because of the weight of what they've been carrying for years. These burdens often come in the form of unforgiveness, regret, disappointment, betrayal, or the pain of unmet expectations. They become like invisible backpacks filled with heavy stones, weighing down the heart and dimming the light of a person's spirit. The truth is, you can't run freely into your future if your arms are full of the past. But before we can even talk about letting go, we have to first recognize that we're holding on to something that's not meant to stay with us. Often we become so used to the pain or the memory of what we've been through that we identify with it. It becomes a part of our story, a part of how we define ourselves. I'm the one who got hurt. I'm the one who was abandoned. I'm the one who failed. And over time, these stories become strongholds. They affect the way we think, the way we relate to others, and the way we see ourselves. We may think we've moved on, but deep down, there's still a bruise on the soul that hasn't healed, because we've never truly acknowledged that we're still carrying it. Recognizing the weight doesn't make you weak, it makes you honest. It takes courage to say, I've been holding on to this too long. It's time to face it. The first step toward healing is awareness. You can't fix what you won't face. Sometimes we distract ourselves with busyness or throw ourselves into work or relationships just to avoid looking inward. But sooner or later, the unresolved hurt surfaces. It shows up in our reactions, in our inability to trust, in our quick temper, or in our chronic anxiety. That's why it's so important to pause and take inventory. What is it that you haven't let go of? What wound are you still nursing? What memory still triggers pain? The answers to these questions aren't always easy, but they're necessary for transformation. Many times we hold on because we think that letting go means accepting what happened was okay. But letting go doesn't mean that what they did to you was right. It doesn't mean you weren't hurt. It means you're choosing your peace over your pain. It means you're no longer giving power to the thing that tried to break you. Holding on to bitterness or sorrow is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. The reality is you're only hurting yourself. You deserve more than a life defined by something that already happened. You deserve freedom. But freedom doesn't come from denial, it comes from awareness. There are also people who carry guilt like a badge. They blame themselves for mistakes, for opportunities missed, for words said in anger, or chances never taken. And they live in this cycle of regret, believing they've missed their chance. But that's a lie. As long as you're breathing, you haven't missed anything that God can't restore or redirect. But restoration begins when you stop punishing yourself and start recognizing that you've already carried this burden long enough. Shame is not your home. Guilt is not your identity. You have to be willing to see yourself not as what you've done, but as someone who is growing and learning every single day. Some people don't even realize the burden they're carrying comes from expectations, what they thought life would look like by now. what they thought they would have achieved, where they thought they would be. And when reality doesn't match their hopes, they carry a quiet disappointment that turns into self-doubt. They lose their joy, not because of any single failure, but because they've tied their worth to a timeline that was never promised. Recognizing that too is part of the weight. We often carry unmet dreams like scars. But maybe the dream didn't happen not because you weren't worthy, but because something better was waiting. That's why we need to pause and acknowledge these hidden burdens. Awareness is powerful. When you recognize what's weighing you down, you take the first step toward freedom. You allow light into dark places. You stop pretending and start healing. This is not about blaming yourself or others. It's about choosing to see clearly, choosing to feel fully, and choosing to reclaim your power. The world tells us to be strong by holding it all in. But real strength is in letting ourselves be vulnerable enough to admit that something still hurts. When you know what's weighing you down, you can finally begin to set it down and move forward toward the life you were always meant to live. There's something incredibly powerful about the present moment, yet so many of us live everywhere but here. We're caught between what happened yesterday and what might happen tomorrow. We replay conversations, relive mistakes, and rehearse fears that haven't even come to pass. And in doing so, we miss the beauty and opportunity that exists right now. The truth is, today is all you really have. Yesterday is over, tomorrow isn't promised, but today, this very moment, is a gift. It's where change can begin, where healing can start, and where a new story can unfold. Embracing the power of today means choosing to show up fully, to let go of the narrative that says you're behind, broken, or too far gone, and to take one small step in a new direction. It's easy to believe that we'll feel better someday in the future. I'll let go when I get closure. I'll start living again once things calm down. I'll be happy when I reach that goal. But that kind of thinking puts your peace and joy on hold. It makes your well-being conditional. And the problem with that is, life will always have some kind of uncertainty or imperfection. If you're waiting for the stars to align perfectly, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, your peace isn't out there in some distant future, it's here within you, if you'll learn how to tap into it. That's why today matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. It's available. It's yours to shape and live. There is a sacredness in choosing to be present. When you embrace the moment you're in, you take back control from the past and the future. You say, I may not know what tomorrow holds, but I know I can choose how I show up today. That's a powerful mindset shift. It's not about ignoring your pain or pretending everything is okay. It's about deciding that today you're not going to let that pain drive your choices. Today you're going to do the best you can with what you have. And that choice, repeated daily, creates momentum. It builds new patterns. It opens the door for breakthrough. Many people underestimate what they can do. They think if they don't make huge progress, it's not worth it. But real change happens in small, consistent steps. Maybe today you forgive a little more. Maybe today you speak more kindly to yourself. Maybe today you take 10 minutes to breathe and reflect instead of rushing into the chaos. These things may seem small, but they matter because they add up, because they plant seeds of a new mindset, a new way of being. And the more you practice showing up in the present, the more you realize how much strength and clarity already exist inside of you. Sometimes embracing the power of today also means accepting where you are without judgment. It means not beating yourself up for what you haven't done or who you haven't become yet. It means acknowledging that you're still here, still trying, still capable of growth. That is enough. You don't need to prove any to anyone. You don't need to be further along. You just need to be willing. Willing to start again. Willing to believe again. Willing to trust that today is not just a gap between yesterday and tomorrow, it's the foundation of your future. People often talk about waiting for a sign or a big moment to shift their lives. But what if the sign is that you woke up this morning? What if the fact that you're still breathing means there's still purpose in you? Still a reason to keep moving. The power of today isn't in its perfection, it's in its potential. Each new sunrise brings with it new grace, new chances, and new mercies. But you have to choose to see it. You have to open your heart to it. The world around you may not change overnight, but the world within you can begin to transform the moment you decide that today matters more than what's behind you or what's ahead of you. There's a kind of peace that comes from choosing to be here, to live in this moment, even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain. Because when you fully embrace today, you stop postponing your healing. You stop waiting for happiness. You stop searching for something out there to validate what already exists inside of you. You begin to discover that strength doesn't always come in grand gestures. Often shows up in the quiet decision to keep going, to keep believing, to keep hoping even when you don't feel ready. And that kind of inner strength is forged in the now, not in the someday. Letting go is not something that comes naturally to most people. It goes against the grain of what we're taught to fight, to hold on, to push through. We're conditioned to believe that if we just try harder, think longer, or wait a little more, things will work out the way we hoped. But there comes a point where holding on no longer serves growth. It starts to become a source of suffering instead of strength. That's when a decision must be made, not a feeling, not a reaction, but a conscious, deliberate commitment to release what is no longer working. You have to commit to letting go the way a climber releases one hand to reach for a new grip. It's risky, it's vulnerable, but it's also necessary if you want to move forward. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or walking away without care. It means choosing your peace over your pride, your future over your fears. It means understanding that there are some things you cannot fix, no matter how much you care, no matter how deeply you try. The truth is, you don't need to have the last word, get the final apology, or have all the answers to move on. Sometimes the closure you're looking for is simply the moment you decide to no longer allow a situation or a person to occupy space in your mind or heart. Making that decision is not easy, especially when emotions are involved, but just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Often, the hardest choices are the most freeing. What keeps most people stuck is the belief that letting go has to feel good. But the reality is, it usually doesn't. It can feel like grief, like something is dying. And in a way, it is the death and illusion of an expectation of a chapter you thought would end differently. That emotional discomfort is part of the process. If you wait to feel completely ready or peaceful before letting go, you may never do it. That's why it takes commitment. A firm inner decision to no longer allow your energy to be drained by what can't be changed. You may still feel sadness or loss, but you don't let those feelings make your decisions for you. This kind of commitment requires clarity. You have to get honest with yourself. What are you holding on to? A relationship that ended but you keep replaying. A failure that haunts you every time you try something new. An identity that's no longer aligned with who you are becoming. Until you name what you're holding, you can't begin to release it. And this doesn't mean you have to fix everything in a day. It means you begin. You begin by telling yourself the truth. You begin by choosing to stop feeding the stories that keep you stuck. You begin by giving yourself permission to move on, even if it feels unnatural at first. Letting go also means forgiving yourself for the parts you played. It means releasing the shame that tells you should have known better, acted sooner, or tried harder. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Now you know more. Now you're in a different place, and that means you have the power to choose differently. That's not weakness, that's growth. You don't have to stay trapped in cycles that no longer fit your vision. You don't owe anyone your continued suffering just because they once meant something to you. You owe yourself the chance to heal. There's a strength that comes from deciding to let go, not out of fear, but out of faith. Faith that something better is ahead. Faith that your worth is not tied to your wounds. Faith that what is meant for you cannot pass you by. Letting go is not just about removing something painful. It's about making room for something new. But you won't be able to receive it with clenched fists. You have to open your hands. You have to trust that what's coming is greater than what's gone, even if you can't see it yet. And that trust doesn't have to be loud or confident. It just has to be steady enough to guide you forward, one moment at a time. Letting go is also about reclaiming your energy. How much time have you spent thinking about that one moment, that one person, that one mistake? How much mental space have you given to things that no longer align with your future? Every time you revisit it, replay it, rehearse it, you lose a bit of your now. You sacrifice the possibility of joy in this moment for the weight of something you can't change. Commitment to letting go means saying, I choose today, I choose peace, I choose freedom. Not because it's easy, but because your life is too valuable to be held hostage by your history. You get to choose what stays and what no longer has a place in your story. When life takes a turn you didn't expect, it's easy to assume that what you lost or what didn't happen was the end of the story. It's easy to look at the closed door, the missed opportunity, or the heartbreak and believe that nothing good could possibly come after it. But the truth is, every ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. It may not look like what you imagined. It may not happen on your timeline. But if you're willing to trust in the process, you'll discover that life has a way of surprising you with beauty from brokenness. Trusting in the promise of new beginnings means choosing hope, even when you don't have all the answers. It means believing that just because one chapter closed doesn't mean the book is over. The human spirit is incredibly resilient. Even after loss, betrayal, or disappointment, there is still something within you that wants to rise. That's not accidental. That's the quiet whisper of your purpose, reminding you that you're not done yet. It's the evidence that even in your pain, there is still life stirring, still dreams waiting to be born. But in order to experience that renewal, you have to be willing to let go of what was, so you can step into what could be. That doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't matter. It means no longer allowing the past to hold the pen as you write your future. The pain may have shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. New beginnings often come disguised as interruptions. They don't always arrive with fanfare or clarity. Sometimes they come through endings that feel unfair or seasons that feel empty. But if you look closely, you'll see that those moments are actually transitions. They are divine detours redirecting you towards something more aligned with who you're becoming. The relationship that ended may have made space for one that will actually nurture your growth. The job you lost may have pushed you toward discovering a calling you never would have pursued otherwise. What feels like rejection is sometimes just redirection. What feels like a breakdown is often the setups for a breakthrough. The hardest part about embracing new beginnings is the in-between, the waiting, the uncertainty, the silence where nothing seems to be happening. It's in those moments that doubt creeps in. You start to question if things will ever get better, if the pain will ever ease, if the future will ever feel worth hoping for again. But those are also the moments where your faith is being refined. You don't need all the answers to move forward. You just need enough courage to take the next step. You just need enough trust to believe that what's ahead can still be good, even if you don't see how right now. There is purpose in every season, even the ones that don't make sense at first. The winter may feel long, but it's also the season where roots grow deep. Just because you don't see fruit right away doesn't mean growth isn't happening beneath the surface. Some of the most important parts of your journey are happening in the unseen places where your character is being shaped. Your strength is being tested. Your faith is being stretched. If you can hold on during those seasons, if you can keep showing up, even when you're not sure it's working, you'll come out stronger. You'll come out wiser. You'll come out more ready for the opportunities that are coming your way. New beginnings also require letting go of control. You may not be able to predict the future or plan every step, but you can choose your attitude. You can choose to believe that life is not against you. You can choose to believe that things are unfolding for your good, even when you can't see it yet. That mindset creates space for miracles. It creates space for grace. It creates space for you to live with open hands and an open heart, ready to receive what is meant for you. Holding on too tightly to how you thought things should be can blind you to the beauty of how things could be. What if the next season of your life is the one where everything begins to align? What if the struggles of your past were not wasted, but were preparing you for something greater? What if the very thing that broke your heart is the thing that opens your soul to more love, more wisdom, more depth than you ever imagined? When you trust in the promise of new beginnings, you begin to live from a place of expectation instead of fear. You start to see that no moment is wasted, no detour is random, and no closed door can stop what has been divinely designed for you. You begin to realize that the best is not behind you, it's being formed right in front of you, one step, one day, one choice at a time. Fear is one of the most persistent forces that holds people back from truly living. It wears many disguises: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's so subtle you don't even recognize it as fear. You just feel stuck. You second guess your choices, you delay taking action, you avoid conversations, risks, or decisions that could move you forward. But fear feeds on hesitation. It grows stronger every time you allow it to dictate your behavior. If you want to step into the fullness of your life, you have to stop negotiating with fear. You have to confront it, call it out, and then choose to move anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's deciding that something else matters more than being afraid. Most people think they need to wait until they're not scared anymore before they act. But waiting for fear to disappear is like waiting for the waves to stop before you dive into the ocean. Fear is part of the journey. It shows up anytime you're about to do something meaningful or unfamiliar. That's not a sign to stop, that's a sign that you're growing. It means you're on the edge of something worth doing. What matters is what you choose to do with that fear. Will you let it shrink your dreams, your relationships, your calling? Or will you look it in the eye and say, I see you, but you don't get to lead me anymore? You don't overcome fear by thinking your way out of it. You overcome fear by acting in spite of it. That action doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's making the phone call, speaking the truth, taking the first step, or simply showing up when everything in you wants to run. With each act of courage, you prove to yourself that fear doesn't have the final say. You begin to build a new identity, not one rooted in what could go wrong, but in what's possible when you trust yourself to keep going. The more you move, the quieter fear becomes. It loses its grip when you stop giving it authority. A lot of fear is rooted in imagined outcomes. The mind spins stories, catastrophizes, assumes the worst. But the truth is, most of the things you're afraid of never actually happen. And even if they do, you're more capable of handling them than you think. You've already survived things you thought would break you. You've already gotten through days you thought you wouldn't. That's evidence that you're stronger than your fear. But you have to remind yourself of that. You have to interrupt the cycle of fear-based thinking with truth, with perspective, with gratitude. Because fear thrives in the absence of clarity. When you get clear about who you are and what you want, fear doesn't disappear. But it does lose its power to control you. Sometimes fear masks itself as practicality. It tells you to be realistic, to play it safe, to avoid risk. But often what's dressed up as logic is really just insecurity in disguise. Being responsible doesn't mean being afraid to take chances. Wisdom and courage can coexist. In fact, they need each other. Wisdom helps you navigate with discernment, and courage helps you take the leap. Without courage, wisdom gets trapped in analysis. Without wisdom, courage turns reckless. But together they create movement that's aligned, intentional, and transformational. You don't need to eliminate fear to live fully. You just need to stop letting it drive the car. Acknowledge it, respect it, but don't obey it. Don't build your life around worst-case scenarios. Build it around values, purpose, and possibility. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of fear, stronger, freer, more alive. That version of you isn't created by avoiding discomfort. It's forged in the fire of choosing faith over fear, purpose over panic, progress over perfection. Every time you choose to act, despite your fear, you reclaim a piece of your power. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Fear doesn't leave all at once. Sometimes it fades slowly as your confidence grows and your experiences start to rewrite your internal narrative. But the decision to stop negotiating with it can happen in a moment. It's the moment you stop waiting to feel brave and decide to be brave. It's the moment you stop believing the lie that fear is a wall and start treating it like a doorway. Everything you want, peace, fulfillment, love, growth, is on the other side of that doorway. The only way to get there is to walk through it. Even if your knees are shaking, even if your voice trembles, even if your heart pounds. That's what living looks like, not being not afraid, but being unwilling to let fear make your choices for you. Living in the present moment is one of the most powerful things you can do to transform your life. Yet it's also one of the hardest. Our minds constantly drift to the past, rehashing old mistakes, reliving regrets, wondering how things could have gone differently. Or they jump into the future worrying about what's to come, imagining worst-case scenarios, making plans upon plans to feel in control. But in doing so, we miss the only place life actually happens right now. The present is where your breath is, where your choices are, where your joy lies. Everything else is a memory or a projection. The more you can anchor yourself in the present, the more alive you become, not because life changes, but because your awareness of it deepens. When you learn to be here fully without trying to escape the moment or rush through it, something powerful shifts. You begin to see the details you once overlooked, the way the light hits the floor, the sound of your breath, the small gestures of kindness, the subtle cues of your emotions. Presence connects you with yourself, with others, with life itself. It slows you down just enough to remember what matters. You stop performing and start experiencing. You stop analyzing and start engaging. And in that engagement, you begin to feel more whole. Living in the moment doesn't mean denying your responsibilities or ignoring your goals. It means approaching each part of your life with full attention and intention. If you're with someone, be with them. If you're working, focus deeply. If you're resting, rest completely. So many people are half living their lives, half listening, half working, half loving, always distracted, always somewhere else in their minds. But when you're only half present, you're only half living. The fullness of life is found in the depth of presence. When you bring your whole self to the moment, you not only honor the people around you, you honor your own soul. The truth is, the present is the only place where healing can happen. You can't go back and undo the past. You can't leap forward and solve the future. But you can choose how to respond right now. You can choose to breathe. You can choose to forgive. You can choose to shift your perspective. That's where your power lies, not in controlling what's already happened or what hasn't happened yet, but in how you show up in this moment. That's how change begins. Not with some huge event, but with one small moment of awareness, of courage, of alignment. The more you practice being present, the more you begin to trust that the moment will give you what you need. You don't have to overthink everything. You don't have to rehearse every possible outcome. You learn to meet life as it comes, moment by moment. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you trust yourself to respond with clarity instead of fear. And the more you trust yourself, the more life begins to flow. You stop resisting what is and start moving with it. You stop seeing interruptions as problems and start recognizing them as invitations to pause, to reflect, to reset. So much anxiety comes from the attempt to live outside the now. We get overwhelmed because we're trying to carry the weight of tomorrow before it arrives. We get depressed because we're dragging yesterday's pain into today's peace. But what if you didn't have to carry all of that at once? What if you could simply take the next breaths, speak the next truth, make the next choice, and let that be enough for now? What if that was actually the key to a better life, not more doing, but deeper being? Not constant motion, but meaningful presence. Presence isn't always comfortable. When you're fully here, you can't numb. You can't hide behind distractions. You have to feel what's really there, the sadness, the fear, the longing, the joy, the gratitude, all of it. But that's what makes life rich. That's what makes healing possible. You stop running and start listening. You stop avoiding and start accepting. You begin to realize that nothing you feel can destroy you when you're rooted in awareness. You can sit with discomfort and not be consumed by it. You can hold joy without needing to grasp or control it. You learn to trust the ebb and flow of life, knowing that each moment, however fleeting, is sacred. Practicing presence takes discipline. It's not something that happens automatically. It's a choice you make again and again. When your mind drifts, you gently bring it back. When you get caught in overthinking, you return to your breath. When the past or future tries to hide your peace, you reclaim it by focusing on what you can do right now. That's how transformation happens, not in some distant place you hope to reach, but right here in the messy, beautiful, ordinary moments you learn to fully inhabit.